reaction upon seeing what happened to Charlie last week?
My initial reaction was our nation is in serious trouble, because if he can be shot because of his words, then none of us have freedom of speech. And that bullet wasn't just for Charlie, it was for anyone who enjoyed their freedom to speak what they thought.
Well, the amazing thing is I heard about it from one of my coworkers. It was one of her young kids. He was a teenager that called his mom and said, "You're not going to believe this, that Charlie." And I have daughter and a son-in-law to be, and they all followed him. And it's unfortunate whether, anybody that wants to speak out against anything should have the right.
There's been a lot of talks about toning down the rhetoric, because in the past few years we're seeing this kind of rhetoric coming from mainstream media talking about, Nazis, demonizing the other side, calling them Hitler. What do you think about that? Do you think this kind of fuels the sentiment and which led up to what happened last week?
Yeah, I think it definitely fueled the system. I think social media is probably the biggest evil of all of it.
The fella who's in the news, supposed to be being objective, has a real strong, he has a dog in the fight. If John Wilkes Booth, is it okay for him to have, you want to talk about his sweetness, you want to talk about Lee Harvey Oswald, you want to talk about the fellow that shot Martin Luther King. Let's have a lot of sympathy for him. Is that going to fly?
I am a huge advocate for free speech, but speech has its consequences. And when you demean people and you talk down to people, when you call people names that trigger a negative response, you become responsible for what happens to that individual.
We're hearing some people on the other side of the aisle, in particular, people like John Fetterman, Dean Phillips on the Democratic side, urging people on his side to tone down the temperature. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. That's the right thing to do.
Well, the best thing I can think of about that was they were having a moment of silence for Charlie in the Congress, I believe, and everybody bowed their head. And then Lauren Boebert called out and said, "Let's have some prayer." And the other side said, "No, doesn't matter who you are, stirring the pot isn't going to make things better."
I agree, yes. And I'm glad he...
Fetterman credit.
Yeah. You have a different viewpoint of it, but he's finally coming out and admitting enough is enough, and you need to stop this rhetoric.
Common sense, a little bit of common sense goes a long way. There ain't much of it these days.
It's not so common anymore.
The House will vote on a continuing resolution later this week. Lawmakers want to avoid a partial government shutdown in